everyone, welcome to Cooking with Mrs. Carlson.
Hey, hello, welcome to Cooking with Mrs. Carlson. Here we have something about whatever that thing is.
We're making an apple pie.
Ah.
These are frozen apples. Okay, so what we're going to do is show you how to make a Dutch apple pie.
I'm not a Duchess.
And sometimes people kind of stray away from pies because one, they don't like pie crust, or two, they're nervous about making a pie crust. But
I love pie crust.
This is kind of a way around that pie crust if you don't like pie crust, or if you don't want to make your own pie crust. So what we're going to do is you turn the Dutch topping of a Dutch apple pie into the crust as well.
Wait, is this from Denmark or something?
This is just the recipe called the Dutch apple pie. Okay, so what you're going to need for this is 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of brown sugar, half of a cup of oatmeal, 3/4 of a cup of butter, and you're going to want to make sure your butter's softened. You need 2/3 of a cup of regular sugar, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1 1/4 cup of cold water, and 3 cups of apples, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now for your apples, I would say the best apple to use for this would be a tart apple. So green apples work really well for this. What I do in the summertime is we pick apples off of the apple trees and just freeze them into smaller pieces. And when I just pulled these out of the freezer, what's nice about them is you can still cut them pretty easily even though they're frozen. So you could do these in a couple of different ways. You could slice them very thinly, just like this. I like to dice mine because the apples cook faster that way. So really whatever your preference is for your apple pie, if you want bigger pieces, bigger slices, or diced apples, you can do this either way. So what I'm going to do is continue dicing up 3 cups of apples. That's how much you need for this. You want to make sure that even if you're not using frozen apples, you want to peel them completely, take out the core and the seeds, and then chop them up. Okay, I would not keep the peels on these apples. Okay, make sure you peel them very well. 3 cups of apples, I diced them.
Dice.
Yes, I did say diced. Okay, so just go ahead and set these aside. What we're going to do now is make our filling. So you're going to need 1 1/4 cups of cold water. It's cold water because cold water mixes best with cornstarch. So you're going to put 3 tablespoons of cornstarch into your cold water. And then we're going to add our sugar to this as well. And what we'll be looking for is for this to thicken. So we're making our own apple pie filling. I use this apple pie filling for a lot of other things just beside my apple pie. If you're doing apple hand pies, or if you just need apple pie filling for something, this is my go-to apple pie filling recipe. It is delicious. All right, so you're going to need 2/3 of a cup of regular white sugar. Okay, so dump that right in with your water and your cornstarch. And then you're going to need a whisk. So you'll want to whisk this together. You'll also want to set your oven to 350 degrees. That's what your pie is going to bake at. So the cornstarch will stick almost immediately right to your pan. So you want to whisk that out before you turn your stove on so you don't get any clumps. Okay, so turn the stove on medium-high heat. And then you're just going to whisk that occasionally and watch it very, very carefully, because once it starts to thicken, it's going to get very, very thick, very fast. All right, so while we're waiting for that to thicken, we're going to put together our crust and our topping. So remember, these are the same thing. We're using the crust and topping, same ingredients. So you need to start with 2 cups of flour. So just measure that out into another bowl. All right, there are 2 cups of flour. We need 1 cup of brown sugar, and this would be packed brown sugar. This pie recipe, I've actually been making this pie since I was in high school. Actually entered this pie into a pie baking contest, and this pie recipe won first prize. So it's definitely a delicious pie, and I continue to make it all the time. Whenever I need apple pie, it's so good. Okay, and then we need 1/2 cup of oatmeal. old-fashioned rolled oats. Okay, and then what you're going to do is cut in your butter. So I'm going to use a fork for that. If you mix your flour and brown sugar and oatmeal up just with the fork, just kind of mash it up, get it mixed around good. And then you're going to put your 3/4 of a cup of butter, which is really a stick and a half. It's a lot of butter, but that's what makes it good, I guess. So what you're going to do is put your butter in, and we're going to cut it. If you have like a pastry cutter or something like that, you can use that as well, but I don't. I just use forks for this. So you just take your fork and cut the butter into the flour mixture, just going back and forth until you're left with some clumps. You want this to be a clumpy mixture, I guess is the best way to put it. So continue going back and forth. It will get stuck on the fork, so just rub it out and continue going back and forth with your fork, just cutting that butter into the flour and the oatmeal. Okay? Remember to check your filling as well. Right now it's very white, but when we add our vanilla and our cinnamon to it, it's going to have that brown apple pie filling color that you're used to with the regular apple pie fillings. Okay, so this is coming together nicely. It does take a little bit of time to get this all cut in if you don't have a regular pastry cutter, but we make do. Get your hands in there and push it around too a little bit. So you're looking for a crummy mixture. What we're going to do is set aside about 1.5 cups of this mixture, and that's what's going to be saved for our topping. The rest is going to be put in the bottom of our pie pan. All right, so once you have your butter cut into your filling, just like this, it's going to be very crummy. You'll want to get out your 9-inch pie pan. I have a glass one here. You could use a tin one, whatever you have works. I like using deeper ones because this pie does bubble up quite a bit, and you run the risk of this pie running over in your oven. So the deeper the pie pan, the better. But what I'm going to do is set aside 1.5 cups of the topping, or of this filling for the topping. Okay, so this is what we're going to put over top of the pie. The rest of it is going to get dumped into our pie pan. Okay, and what you're going to do then is just press this out to make your pie crust. So, I don't know about you, but that is about the easiest pie crust that I can think to make. And I like the taste of this pie crust better. There's so much more flavor in that oatmeal and the butter than a regular pie crust. So it just gives it a nice little, I guess, different taste for you. All right, so your pie crust is all pressed into your pie plate and ready for the filling. We're just waiting for this cornstarch, sugar, and water mixture to thicken. Okay, so you can see that our cornstarch filling is starting to thicken. When this starts to boil a little bit, it's going to continue to thicken even more. When it's reached your desired level of thickness, you're going to pull that off of the stove and add in your vanilla and cinnamon. This looks pretty good. Okay. And then you'll add in your apples as well. You don't want to put your vanilla in until after you've taken it off of the stove though. Alright, so we'll shut that off. Okay, so we'll put in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Remember, when you add vanilla to hot things, it could boil up in your face, so just be very careful with that. You don't want to be adding vanilla to things that are boiling. Alright, so 1 teaspoon of cinnamon also goes into this. If you want nutmeg in your apple pie, that would certainly be a good addition as well. So now we can see our filling changing to that nice brown color. Then all you're going to do is add your apples to the filling mixture. Put this into your pie crust. Add your topping. Put it in the oven. Pretty simple. Okay, so like I said before, this apple pie filling, make sure just with that cornstarch and the sugar. I use this pie filling all the time, even without baking a regular pie. And you could put this filling into a regular pie crust as well, but I just like the different pie crust of the oatmeal topping. Give it a nice flavor. All right, so then take your reserve topping and just put that over the top of your pie. If you are nervous about this pie overflowing in your oven, a smart thing to do is put a baking pan that has tin foil on it underneath of the rack. Not underneath your pie, but under the rack. So if it runs out, it spills onto the pie, onto the baking sheet instead of on the bottom of your oven. And trust me, this pie will boil up, and there's a good chance that it will run out onto your oven. So just be careful with that. All right, so put it in your 350-degree oven for about 40 minutes. All right, so our pie has baked for 40 minutes, and I just pulled it out of the oven. You'll see that the crust is starting to brown up a little bit. That's how you can tell when it's done. And luckily for me, just because I talked about it, the pie did not run over this time. So major bonus there. All right, thanks for joining us today.